everyone, and welcome to episode 473 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. I'm Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we have a small crew here this week. Crim is still making his way back from MagicCon Chicago, so I'm joined by the owner of MTG Goldfish, Richard. How are you this fine Monday, Richard?
Good morning, Seth. I see Crim hasn't survived MagicCon Chicago.
I will give Crim a lot of credit. He had early morning commitments almost every day at Chicago, and he was there bright and early, 10 a.m. East Coast time. I was amazed because I don't even know. It's like the middle of the night Crim time, but yeah, he did the long days. It was super fun. I met so many people in Chicago. So if you came up and said hi or whatever at Chicago, thanks to you because y'all made the event a huge, just a blast. I had such a great time. So thanks to all of you for that. But we have some good topics today. We got a ton of spoilers for MagicCon Chicago. So that's going to be one of our biggest topics. But we also had a pro tour. We had some changes to the languages of Magic products that's coming up. So we want to hit on that stuff as well. So that's the plan for today. Some news and a ton of spoilers. But before we get into that, a reminder that today's show is brought to you by Card Conduit. And Card Conduit's the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. And if you ever get tired of the hassles of buy listing, you can skip them with Card Conduit. You can use their curated service and send in as many cards as you want with a buy list value of $1 or more and pay just a 5% service fee. And you can do a bit of work with the sorted service where you list and sort your cards in advance and pay just a 2% fee. And either way, you're going to get a detailed report with the results and a fast payment once your order is processed. And you can even get another 10% off by heading over to cardconduit.com/MTGGoldfish. Card Conduit, they're the easiest way to sell your Magic cards. So thank you so much to Card Conduit for supporting this show. And let's talk some Magic, and let's start with the big event from the weekend. So at MagicCon Chicago, we had Pro Tour Chicago, Pro Tour Murders at Karlov Manor. I'm not sure what they're calling them anymore, but it was a Pioneer Pro Tour. The top 8 is in. We know who won it. Richard, what went down at Pro Tour Murders at Karlov Manor?
All right. So apparently there's a Pro Tour.
Yes.
And I was informed that at every MagicCon, there's going to be, I don't know what you even call it, like a big event. So either a Pro Tour or World or something. So I knew there was Commander happening at MagicCon Chicago. I did not realize there was a Pro Tour happening. And some spicy stuff went down at Murders at Karlov Manor. So they're not based on cities. They're based on set releases. Vampires busted out. Channel Fireball, a name we haven't heard in a long time, apparently still exists as a pro team, and they broke the metagame. Apparently, Vein Ripper. So that's the 6-drop Murders of Karlov Manor Mythic. It's a 6-drop 6/5 vampire assassin in black, flying, ward, sack a creature. Whenever a creature dies, target opponent loses 2 life. You gain 2 life. You just chuck that in to your deck, and you have Sorin, the 3-drop Planeswalker that can cheat vampires into play. And then you just play like Rakdos mid-range stuff, right? So Blood Tithe Harvester already in the deck. Perfect, right? Thoughtseize, Fable the Mirror Breaker. So you throw this together, it broke the metagame. They were running hot. We had, I think, 2 in the top 8. Ultimately, Seth Manfield won the tournament with Rakdos Vampires. Other top 8 decks. I didn't actually watch it. Did he mulligan?
Oh, yeah. So Seth Manfield is like infamous for never mulliganing. He's just like, always keep my 7. I don't care how bad it is. I'm going to draw out of it. But he won a game on a multi-4, which is just like the least Seth Manfield way to win. But he was mulliganing aggressively throughout the event and was totally rewarded by ending up winning the whole thing, which was cool to see.
Multi-4. That's
his opponent was on a mold of 5, but still, it was a semifinals game where he won on the mold of 4.
So the rest of the top 8, Is It Phoenix, 2 copies, 2 Lotus Field combos, Amalia combo, a heroic deck, and then 2 Rakdos vampire decks. But seems like it's the real deal, and it's literally just Rakdos mid-range with some more vampires thrown in. So I don't think it's going away. I think that sounds like a legit deck to me.
Yeah, I mean, Rakdos has been the best deck in Pioneer for a minute now. So this is like taking advantage of Thoughtseizes, Fable, Smuggler's Copter, like all the best cards of the Rakdos deck. But then you also can just turn 3 a Vein Ripper, which I think is like the tech for Phoenix. Phoenix was the most played deck at the event and maybe the best deck going into the event in a lot of people's opinion. So the idea is you just put this huge flyer on there and just it essentially just shuts down the entire Phoenix plan. It seemed like it worked really well. It looked really impressive. I got to watch some like on my trip home. I was like waiting at the airport watching the finals of the Pro Tour last night. So it was really cool to see it work. And it was so nostalgic. I know you remember this because we've been doing Pro Tours forever, but back in the old days, the before days when we actually like did Pro Tours all the time, I remember like waiting for the deck list to come out to see what team would break it. Like what team like came up with this crazy brew that no one else had thought of. Is it going to work? And this kind of felt like that, right? We had this like kind of, I know it's a Rakdos, but still the vampire thing with Vein Ripper is pretty new and novel. So we got to see this team that kind of broke the format, which is something I haven't seen happen in like 10 years or something. This is like going back to the old school Pro Tour. So it was really cool to see this innovation taking place on the Pro Tour stage again.
Yeah. I don't even, how do you keep it under wraps in 2024? This is Pioneer, so it's not on Arena, but it is on Moto. So the fact that they're able to keep it under wraps, but I guess there's a murders card in here, so that was kind of the new tech. So it's a new set, but this does harken back to the old days where you would actually get like cool ideas and a team could break it and run with it. I would say it was unfortunately overshadowed by the 8 billion previews that came out, and no one really cares about what happened. But it'd be cool if we had a whole weekend to like focus on this and try to dissect the deck list rather than cool vampires. But now tell me about Emrakul in Modern Horizons 3. So it's a little overload. Like, plus we're coming off we're not even done Fallout, by the way. We haven't even talked about like Fallout cards, but like that's so beyond us right now because we got to talk about all the new sets coming out. So Wizards pacing, man. Like, could they not spread this out, do something better? Like this, I feel this would have so much hype back in the days, but we're gonna forget about these vampires in like 2 seconds as we talk about previews.
Do you think it'd be better to split off the Pro Tours rather than having them at MagicCon? So like the upside of having them at a MagicCon, I guess from WotC's perspective is same tournament center. You don't have to like rent out another hall, but you also get the upside that you have all these pro players that are at the event and they're kind of like doing their own thing, but you'll see them, coming to and from the event or after the event. So it's kind of, I guess, cool for people going to the event that, hey, you might run into Reed Duke or LSV or something. On the other hand, it does get overshadowed, right? Like the topic is command. There was a huge Command Zone live that was like super popular. That was a big thing. There's like Mark Rosewater panels, all these spoilers, Fallouts, all the new sets. So no one's really talking about the Pro Tour. Do you think it would be better to just do it like a week before or after the actual MagicCon and have it be its own thing so people could focus on it?
I think it wouldn't exist otherwise. I think
Oh,
like nobody really cares. Everyone is there for Commander, and this pro event is kind of stapled onto it. And it's a win for Wizards because they don't have to get a second venue, right? It's expensive, right? Like just carving out a little area for the Pro Tour is easy, but getting a whole venue and doing that whole thing is expensive. So I think it's not ideal for anyone that it's coupled with the MagicCon, except for Wizards, because it's like very cheap, right? So, but I firmly believe we wouldn't have one otherwise.
oh yeah. So they also did the 75K for standard at the event, and one of the big complaints on social media the last couple of days is the 75K was near the main stage. So you got like game nights live going on with like just packed out, everyone cheering and loud, and the people trying to play the standard 75K are upset about how noisy it was. We're hearing all these people cheering and the microphones, and yeah, that sucks. But at the same time, as soon as I started seeing those complaints, I was like, if you complain about this enough, I think the obvious response from Wizards is just going to be like, well, then we'll just stop doing 75Ks. Like, they're not going to like beat out game nights at a MagicCon in 2024. So yeah, it's another one of those things where in an ideal world, the 75K wouldn't be taking place next to the main stage. But I think the main stage and all these like casual people coming in for Commander in the Command Zone are what's even making that event happen in the first place. So you see a lot of this awkwardness, I guess, with just the shift in Magic, right? From being competitive to more casual and people trying to figure out what that means for them in their formats. So
well, that one Wizards just needs to plan better. Like you can just put vendors near the main stage and they'll love it. They'll love like everyone cramming by and then have to look at all these singles or whatever. So that one I think is fixable. That one is fixable.
Also more tables. I had to play some floor Magic. I am too old for floor Magic, Richard.
I saw it was like the most popular event or whatever of like all time.
The biggest MagicCon ever, yeah.
Did it feel like it? Did it look like it was bigger than Vegas? Was it Wizards playing with the numbers, or was it actually like that on the floor?
It was actually like that on the floor. The place was absolutely packed out. The events, like the Unknown event with Gavin Verhey and stuff, had way more people than they thought. So they had to like seep into the command zone. So the command zone players were like playing on the floor. They had to open up. Apparently, this is a story I heard, not from someone running the event, but from people at the event, that they actually got a bunch more tables in like a downstairs room, put them in, and had to get the fire marshal to come back in and like approve them to let more people come in to use that space. So yeah, they did what they could, but it was legitimately the biggest MagicCon I've been to, and I've been to like the biggest Vegas or whatever too. So yeah, it actually legitimately felt huge, and it was like super fun. Obviously, when you have 15,000 people or whatever, things are going to happen with logistics, but I thought, all things considered, despite having to play some Magic on the floor, that it actually went pretty smoothly, and they'll learn from their mistakes. Remember Vegas like 2 years ago, how scuffed that event was, and then how much better the future Magic Cons got. So I think whatever problems they had with Chicago, I think they'll learn from and improve next time.
The funny thing is, like, they should have known about this, right? People buy their tickets ahead of
It was
time.
sold out. Yep.
It was sold out, so they should know how many people are coming. And so rather than scrambling on like the Friday evening to get more tables, why did they do this like 2 months ago? That's weird. I also heard complaints about on-demand events were pre-purchased, defeating the purpose of on-demand events. Right? So
Yes.
you show up and you can't play anything because everyone bought it out like a long time ago.
And they ran out of sealed product too for some of the on demand events. So like on day one, they ran out of product, so you couldn't do on demand drafts because they just literally didn't have any more boxes for people to draft with. So yeah, I think this ended up being way bigger than they thought. So I don't know how they didn't figure it out, because it was sold out like 2 or 3 weeks ago. So it seems like they could have adjusted, but I do think they were expecting way less people, and everyone showed up for it. So it was a fun event. There were definitely issues with some of the logistics, but overall I had a really good time. But we have so much to talk about. That's the Pro Tour. Congrats to Seth on an awesome Pro Tour win. One of the other big topics before we get to spoilers is WotC announced some changes to the languages in which Magic cards are printed, which is starting this summer, I think, with Modern Horizons 3 and also Bloomburrow, which come out in like July and August. Richard, what's happening with the languages of Magic?
All right. So after Modern Horizons 3, well, actually, there's two different times here. So Portuguese and Chinese Simplified are going away as supported languages. So Portuguese after Modern Horizons 3, and then Bloomburrow is when Chinese Simplified goes away. Kind of sucks. The remaining core languages are English, Japanese, French, Italian, German, Spanish. So on one hand, I get why they do this. They print so many products. These markets are so much smaller. Like, you're just gonna sit around with all these products doing nothing, and it's like a big logistical nightmare. On the other hand, like, I really wish Wizards went after that Chinese money. That's a huge market, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you actually look at like any metric, you're like, oh, this Twitch streamer has like 200,000 views. Then you're like, what does the most popular like Chinese streamer have? It's like something like 5 million views, like concurrent viewers or something ridiculous, right? There's like so many people there. And like the people with money have so much money to throw around. They're like, oh yes, US mobile sales, like 2 million. Chinese mobile sales, like 50 million or something for some like random game. So I don't know. Wizards should find some way, but I see why this is the case. There's so many products, and to make them in every language and to have them sit on shelves, but that's how new players get in, right? Like if you're not an English speaker, it's very hard to pick up an English card and understand it. As an English speaker myself, I don't understand any of the cards when I read them anymore. Like, it would help if they were in your native language, right? So I don't know. On one hand, it kind of makes sense, but on the other hand, I wish they spent more time expanding and trying to grow these other markets, because like there are a lot of big non-English communities, right? Like the biggest one, I guess, would be Japanese. Like the Japanese Magic scene is booming, right? And then Italian, French, German, Spanish.
Yeah, I mean, so I get why they're doing it, right? It's going to cut costs and makes things easier on them. They mentioned that they're not some of the better selling languages of Magic cards, so I can get it from like the short-term dollar and cents perspective. On the other hand, this really hurts, I think, some communities and getting new players into the game. You mentioned China, which is a huge market where there's so many people that could be playing Magic. It's really weird to see that going away. And then the Portuguese change, I know, really hits the Brazilian Magic community hard. That's something that they've been very vocal about in the last few days, which makes a lot of sense. They say, we have English cards here, and like, yeah, some people know English, but many of the new players we want to get into the game don't know English, and we can't really expect them to learn English to play Magic. They're just not going to play Magic. So it really hurts these communities. So I think it's really sad, right, for a global game like Magic to have to minimize the number of languages they're going into. So it's one of those things that it just feels short term to me, right? Like, sure, you're probably going to save some money on printing costs over the short term, but what about 5 years from now and all those people that could be playing in China, could be playing in Brazil, these other countries that aren't playing because they don't have cards in their language? So it just seems short-sighted to me, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, you're going to save some money in 2024, but you're probably going to cost yourself some money in 2028 or 2029 with all these people that could be playing in these countries. So, yeah. And then I don't know if you saw that WotC had to shut down all their comments on Twitter and on YouTube because the people were so upset about this change. They were just like anything they would tweet. So they've had their everything locked down over the weekend for the Pro Tour and MagicCon stuff. Can't reply to anything, can't comment on anything. Yeah. So I don't know if maybe, I guess it's good people are letting their voices heard, hopefully respectfully, but I don't know if Wizards would ever make a change to that, but there's certainly been a lot of negative feedback based on this change.
So Portuguese is still available on Magic Arena. Chinese Simplified is not. And then also Russian is ending support after Modern Horizons 3 on Arena as well. So I don't know. This is weird. There's like
the
all
Arena
these...
one's really weird. Why? Isn't Arena super easy? Like, shouldn't I get like
still gotta pay for it?
Physical cards? Yeah, I guess you gotta pay someone to translate it or something. But
we know how suspicious their translation team is half the time.
That's true.
But yeah, I don't know. It seems strange, but I wish there was a better way that we could support all these languages, like make everything in Phyrexian and no one can read anything, so it doesn't matter. I think that's actually Wizards' plan, right? Their plan is like, you can always get English cards, and that's probably better than Phyrexian cards or movie poster cards, but it sucks that we can't get new players into the game on some of these languages.
Well, let's move on to some less depressing news, which is we have a ton of spoilers. So there was a huge spoiler stream. Well, of course, it's been Fallout spoiler season, but I think we're mostly going to talk about those on the Commander Clash podcast. So check that out next week, I think, when we go over all those cards for Commander. But I want to talk about...
Seth.
Oh, did I miss something?
There's one Fallout thing I want to talk to you about. Fallout thing. So like Seth said, all the deck lists are up, all 4 decks. You can check them. We're going to talk about them on the Commander channel. But there was one thing I wanted your opinion on, Seth, is my boy Tarmogoyf has been reskinned outside the Magic universe as something, and I am so upset I don't even know what it's called. Okay? They took him and slapped another name on it. How do you feel about that? Because I have a lot of mixed feelings about this, that Tarmogoyf was taken out of universe and like stolen by Fallout. Like, what do you think about that?
It's a little weird, right? But at the same time, not surprising. We've seen these reskins going on, and honestly, I think we landed on reskins being one of the preferred ways to do these crossovers, even though, I mean, that was a couple years ago. Now we're full on Universes Beyond mode, so it's not like it even matters. On one hand, it's awkward to see one of the most iconic cards from the modern era of Magic show up as scrounging Deathclaw that doesn't really look like Tarmogoyf at all and looks like some Fallout character. On the other hand, like, I don't know, maybe that's the cost of being an iconic card, is you're going to eventually get a Universes Beyond version. I'm curious what you think, Richard, because you're the Goyf player. You're an old school Jund modern player. Would you play this in your Jund deck? Are you rushing out to get scrounging Deathclaws to replace your Goyfs?
God, you could sponsor me to play this, and I would refuse. I would refuse. This is like, I don't know. It feels so disrespectful. I don't know why I'm so upset about this. I mean, I kind of get why, because I played Tarmogoyf for so long. But like, imagine if they took Jace the Mind Sculptor and they're like, "You suck. We're gonna change you into Mickey Mouse, and like, here you go." right? Like I don't know, right? Like Tarmogoyf is iconic Magic IP, and it's not like Tarmogoyf cosplaying as something. You know, it's not like Tarmogoyf with like some fancy Fallout armor or something. It's literally they just took his stuff and then put it into another character. I feel that's over the line, and I feel that really cheapens the IP. Like imagine they did that with Jace or Liliana. They're like, oh, this is Liliana, but it's actually not. It's actually Mickey Mouse or it's actually Spider-Man. And you're like, why would you do that to
You-
your iconic characters, right? Like this is I think more iconic than like half of the planeswalkers or whatever that Wizards pumps out. Right? Like
you
Tarmogoyf is up there on the list of things. And to disrespect my man's so dead already. Like
so
you need to kick him further. He's being
where's
outdone by a goblin token, Seth. A goblin
no,
fabled and
that's
pure token is worth more than Tarmogoyf. And I almost died because I thought he was in a pre-con, but he's not in a pre-con. He's in a
we're
collector booster.
close. We're close to Tarmogoyf showing up in a commander precon. We're very close to that stage. Where's the cutoff then, Richard? Because we also have, so they did a bunch of these. There's like Grave Titan, Hornet Queen, Ayula Queen Among Bears, getting the same treatment, Hullbreak Horror, maybe a couple others that I'm missing. The Walking Ballista. Where's the cutoff? Like, what makes something iconic enough that it shouldn't get this treatment? Like, is like Walking Ballista okay? Grave Titan okay? Like, or should we just avoid doing this altogether now that we got Universes Beyond like 2 times a year? All these, just like, don't do these reskins. Just make your own Tarmogoyf if you want one for Fallout.
You should just literally have it Tarmogoyf be in the Fallout universe. Like that's how iconic these people. Like let's say Jace was there, right? Like Jace would have a gun and have a little doggo with him, and he would go shoot things, and he'd be Jace the Mind Sculptor, and not some random character, right? So these characters are so iconic that they should just be themselves.
Do you think Fallout would, or Bethesda or whatever, would let them? Like that would be my question. I wonder what the rules are for these crossovers. Like, could they just put Goyf in there or Jason there?
It's Wizards game, whatever Wizards says. Like they should negotiate the contract. But like I don't know, man. I feel you're slandering the name of Tarmogoyf here by doing this. Like you're like Tarmogoyf's not enough to sell. We got to rebrand them into like this random thing. Like I hope that's like the #1 character in Fallout, which I'm pretty sure it's not. Whatever Tarmogoyf got rebranded into.
No. So I think it's just like a random character. It's not something especially iconic, I don't think. I'd be curious to what other people think about this, because honestly, like, I'm not that offended by it. Like a couple
Wait
of
till I
years
take
ago,
your favorite character, Seth.
a couple of years ago I would be, but at this point I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't know. It's all I'm over it. I'm over it. Like, but
Wizards is losing me on Universes Beyond with Fallout. Like the Tarmogoyf debacle and also just the general set, but we'll talk about that on the other podcast.
We'll talk about that in Commander,
set.
but I do have some thoughts about this set. But tune into the Commander Clash podcast next week. Yeah, so let's talk about some other spoilers. So I think we're going to try to go in chronological order by when the set's releasing. So the next set coming out is Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Spoilers start exactly a month from today, actually, March 26th. So we got about a month until we kick off spoiler season. It's like the Old West Outlaw set, I guess. We got a few cards. Richard, what have we seen so far from Outlaws of Thunder Junction?
All right, so to give you some background information here, which is actually just a paragraph from our editor Neoduk. So the set code is OTJ. Okay, but along with OTJ, there are 2 additional set codes coming out. So normally there's a special sheet that comes with like every set, like Mystical Archive, Masterpieces, whatever. That is going to be called Breaking News, which is OTP. Okay, but from the Aftermath debacle, there was an Aftermath set that Wizards scrapped because they don't want to do Aftermath anymore. They're sticking it on with this set. That's called the Big Score or the Vault, which is BIG. So that was going to be an additional set, but they scrapped that. So they're just slapping it in here. The net result, by the way, is something like there's like 50 mythics in the set between all of these, by the way. So there's going to be a huge drain on your Magic Arena wild cards.
Yup.
Special guests are coming back as well. And then for OTC, which is the Commander product, cards can be found in the precons or collector boosters. And then there's a new mechanic, which is crime. and we'll find a crime card, and we'll talk about that. And then the last thing is Nathan Stewart's World Champion card is sitting in
Ah,
OTJ.
yes.
So when you
Also,
become World Champion, you get a card now, and it's in OTJ.
that is pretty cool. It's kind of like the invitational cards coming back, which I really like. One thing on the bonus sheets, so the crime bonus sheet, we've seen like Thoughtseize, Crime and Punishment so far. Those are not standard legal. They're not changing what formats they're legal in. It's just like a cool reprint. The Vault bonus sheet with the Aftermath cards from the canceled Aftermath, those are all standard legal. So one of the bonus sheets, not standard legal. The other one is standard legal.
All right. So let us get into some Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And wait, this is a standard set, right? So everything
Yes.
here is available for standard going back. So, we'll talk about the art style in a second. Tiny Bones, the pickpocket. A single black. It's a 1-drop, 1/1 skeleton rogue with death touch. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may cast target non-land permanent from that player's graveyard, and mana of any type can be spent to cast that spell.
This card's so good. I think this card's actually like one of the strongest cards that they've spoiled from the entire weekend of all the different sets. I think this card's actually legit good. So we've seen 1-mana 1/1 Death Touchers be pretty good in. So I should say for standard, if you're playing a Bowmaster's Ren and 6 format, no, you're not going to play this card like ever. But in standard, 1-mana 1/1 Death Touchers actually tend to punch up. We've seen some of just the random common like vanilla outside of being a Death Toucher 1/1s just show up in the format because it's almost like a removal spell that sits out on the battlefield against big creature decks. So this is going to take down a Sheoldred or whatever big creature your opponent has. So we've already seen that archetype be playable. And then this has a pretty powerful late game ability. It's a 1-drop that on turn 1, turn 2, turn 3 just plays really good defense. And then later, your opponent's probably not going to want to block it because it has Death Touch. And if you get in that combat damage, all of a sudden you can just start casting things from your opponent's graveyard, which is pretty powerful. So I actually think this card's pretty good for standard. I would be very surprised if this card was not standard playable. Plus cowboy hats.
I'm going to be the hipster and say it's probably going to be bad.
Ooh.
Because okay, here's my theory. Wizards loves stapling on, dealing 1 damage randomly to things. So people are going to be able to remove this in the same vein as like Bowmasters does in Modern. That is my guess. We're going to have cards in standard that just randomly ping, and to think like people will have like Goblin Chain Whirler type effects or something, which will do this. So like very slow decks who just want a blocker will do this, but like the ability to connect and cast a spell or like trade up or something, I think will be less prominent because I think we will have random things that just like pick off, like, you know, some random charm that does something and then like just like picks this off. So that is my guess, but we will see. If we don't have those cards, this could trade very profitably and get you like a Sheoldred for free or something, right? Or not for free, but you have to cast it. But you get to essentially draw a Sheoldred out of your opponent's graveyard. So it could be very high, but it could be Goblin Chain Roller, and then this is unplayable.
I guess that's true. I guess we'll have to see what the meta looks like. Very good against big creature decks, though. I got to ask you about the flavor, Richard. So we just went from Murders at Karlov Manor, which was, hey, here's all these characters, but they have detective hats. Now it seems like we're going to Outlaws at Thunder Junction, which is like, hey, here's all these characters, but they have cowboy hats. What do you think about that being the theme of the year so far? Like characters you know, but with goofy hats.
This is dumb. like I don't know. I saw this and I was like, are you serious? like seriously, Tiny Bones is like Tiny Bones with the cowboy hat, but like it's like I don't know, comedic, right? Like the poses they're doing and the dress. Oko, which we're gonna talk about, has a cowboy hat. Fibblethip has a cowboy hat. We were like, oh, Westworld? Like Red Dead Redemption, let's go. And then we're like, this is it. I'm like, what is this? I'm confused. So I don't like this. The showcase is the wanted frame, and as a One Piece enjoyer, this like hurts my soul. Like I know One Piece doesn't have a copyright on wanted posters or something, right? But like the whole shtick of One Piece is like they're like very bad pirates, and everyone has a wanted poster and they're worth varying amounts. You know, the more money, the badder you are, right? But I look at this frame and it looks so bad compared to One Piece wanted cards. And it
I
feels like a knockoff of One Piece, but I could see what they're going for, but yeah.
I don't even play One Piece really, and that was the first thing I thought of when I saw these two, because I've seen the like One Piece wanted cards, and it does
Yeah.
kind of look like a knockoff of those to some extent. Although in Wizards' defense, like how else are you gonna know Flibblethip's in the Old West now, other than put a cowboy hat on him? It is kind of easy though, right? Is that just the easy mode? Like, how do we get this across? Just put the goofy cowboy hat on him.
This is I don't like this set already. It's the comedic turn, right? It's like it's not a cowboy set, right? It's a comedy in a Western or something. I don't know. We'll see more of the cards later, but this is not what I was thinking when I thought Western in my head. It's more out of place, right? It's like I'm playing Disney cards or something here again.
So you mentioned a new Oko, Richard. What does it do, and is it going to break Magic like the first one, you think?
All right, 4 mana Simic Oko. Shirtless still, but with the cowboy hat, okay?
Cowboy hat.
3 starting loyalty. At the beginning of your turn, Oko the Ringleader becomes a copy of one target creature you control until end of turn, except he has hexproof, that's the static. +1, draw 2 cards. If you've committed a crime this turn, discard a card. Otherwise, discard 2 cards. -1, create a 3/3 elk. -5 for each other non-land permanent you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Now, committing a crime is targeting your opponent or any of their stuff or zones with a spell or ability. You got some soft Magic players, Seth.
Okay. Yeah. It's basically Commander. Yeah. It's the Commander philosophy of committing a crime. If you do anything to any of my stuff, it's a literal crime. So this card
good.
So this card is interesting to me. It's definitely not like the first Oko. So it's 4 mana, not 3 mana. Like it's not going to do the offense defense thing, but I still think it could be relatively good. Like the +1 is fine, right? Being able to filter through your deck is generally pretty good. We got a bunch of mechanics in standard that care about your graveyard. So this is a good way to stock your graveyard, to descend or collect evidence or whatever. Turning into a creature, I don't know how good that ability is. What do you think of the static? On one hand, we have so many powerful legends now that in some decks, you just legend rule yourself if you even use that ability. You don't want to turn into a Shieldred or an Ecclesodz or anything Edenic because it's just going to die anyway. On the other hand, it works good with attack triggers, like getting a second Preacher of the Schism or something seems kind of nice. Hexproof makes it a little less risky to do. And then the ultimate seems pretty powerful, although it's kind of win more-ish. Like you need a bunch of non-land permanents on the battlefield, and if you have a bunch, do you need another copy of them to win? Maybe not, but it does seem really fun when it goes off. So I think it's got a chance to be standard playable, but it's definitely not anywhere near the first Oko.
My guess is it's broken. I think it's all contingent on that static. So that static makes or breaks this Planeswalker. If it didn't have the static, I think the Planeswalker would be trash. But you could cast Oko, untap, cast another creature, and you essentially have haste now because Oko will copy it and then go to town immediately. Any big beefy body or something with a good ability, like Oko becomes a copy of. So I think that's worth it. And then you get like +1 card draw, -1 elk, -5 copy more stuff, I guess. But I feel if there are good non-legendaries, so that is the thing, right? Like most of the good creatures are legendary. Thanks, Commander. But if we can find good stuff that's not like I don't know, Carnage Tyrant or something. Like, I don't like imagine a Questing Beast or something was not legendary, right? You'd get 2 of them. This card would be insane, I think, because you get that copy, you get the elk, or you get the card draw. Like that's very strong, right? So I think Oko will be good. But contingent on what he can copy.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see a little bit what the meta looks like. What about outside of standard? Any chance this is like a modern Planeswalker? Yeah, I was kind of thinking no, but
it's not Jace the Mind Sculptor.
It is definitely not a Jace the Mind Sculptor. I wanted to ask you, Richard, so there's a couple of other like normal cards. Flibblethip with a cowboy hat, a removal spell. I'm intrigued by one of the cards on the vault bonus sheet though. That one I really wanted to ask you about, which is Sword of Wealth and Power. So everyone thought we were done with swords. WotC finally completed the cycle of the swords and X and Ys. But it looks like we're getting another one with a little bit of a twist. So what does Sword of Wealth and Power do, Richard?
All right. 3 mana sword. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from instants and sorceries. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Then, when you cast an instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. Choose new targets for the copy equipped to.
What do you think of
Doo-doo.
this sword?
Doo-doo.
Doo-doo? Ooh, but okay.
You think it's good?
But isn't pro instants and sorceries kind of good? Like that keeps any removal spell really from hitting your creature. So it's bad at attacking through blockers, which is part of the upsides of the protection from colors, but it is really good removal protection, right? It's not going to get swords or path or fail. And like name a removal spell, it's not going to target it. The abilities are weird. Like a treasure is never bad. We see that with the goblin from Fable the Mirror Breaker, that treasure really does pressure and add up and lead to some awkward situations. The spell copying mode, that's when I'm a little bit like, ew, is that going to be worth it? You think it's just straight up bad though? Like not worth it?
So protections from instants and sorceries is essentially like bad hexproof, right? Like creatures can still
essentially.
So, but there is a slight upside. So if someone blasphemous acts, like you survive through it. But if someone Wrath of Gods, you're dying anyway, right? So that protection I feel is a lot worse than just straight up color protection because it doesn't give you evasion. This is 5 mana to copy a spell. You could just pay 2 mana for a fork, right? And you got to somehow get through and hit someone with it, and you don't have the colored protection to help you. I don't know. But so you got to like copy, like you got to get like 2 hits in with the sword before it does something useful. And if you're just using it for protection, it kind of sucks too. So I think it's pretty bad. I don't know how you would.
It's pretty good the second turn. That's pretty good the second turn. Like if you can get in 2 attacks with it, but maybe that's asking too much. But I think you're right that like 3 to cast, 2 to equip, and then having mana left over to cast a spell, even with the treasure it makes, that is kind of asking for a lot of things to go right to actually have it work.
The best case is equip Blasphemous Act. That's like the best thing you can do with this.
Oh, I guess it's also worth mentioning, too, that pro instants and sorceries means you wouldn't be able to target it either. So if you're playing a deck that cares about targeting your own things, that might get a little bit worse there because it would keep them from being targeted. So that's Outlaws at Thunder Junction. There's a couple other little spoilers. I think those are the most exciting ones. But let's keep moving on to our next set, which I believe, what's next on our list, Richard? Is it Modern Horizons? Oh, it's actually Assassin's Creed next.
Oh, we were doing Assassin's Creed? Modern Horizons comes out earlier though.
Okay, let's do Modern Horizons. Let's do Modern Horizons. I got to talk about
Modern Horizons is June. Okay, so this is direct to modern. Okay, but they have commander decks. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
What are we seeing in this? We got allied fetch lands. Okay,
allied fetch lands. We see Priest of Titania for elves, which is a cute little reprint. I don't know if that changes things, but Priest of Titania, the 2-drop that taps to make green for each elf you control, really powerful elf. So it'll be interesting to see if that does anything. The 2 cards I really want to ask you about, Richard, I think are Emrakul and then Flare of Cultivation. Those are the 2 that really stand out to me.
What? And Johnny got disrespected? Okay, that's
okay. We can talk about it, Johnny, too.
Okay, so Modern Horizons 3, right? This is the set that brought you the elemental cycles, the free spells, all of that, right? So this is the power level we're talking about. Emrakul, the world anew. 12 generic mana, 12/12. Legendary creature, Eldrazi. When you cast this spell, gain control of all creatures target player controls, flying from protection from spells and permanents that were cast this turn. When Emrakul leaves the battlefield, sacrifice all creatures you control. Madness, 6 colorless. So like colorless symbol 6 times is the madness cost.
I've been going back and forth on this one. Oh, I've been going back and forth. Like every time I read it, I'm like, okay, this card's busted. No, this card's probably unplayable. No, it's probably busted. Right now, I think it's probably busted because of the madness. So it's busted, but you're going to have to build around it. So at 12 mana, it's okay. Like, I don't think it's exciting like the original Eldrazi. It's not annihilating. Your opponent really needs to have creatures for it to be effective with its cast trigger. But if you're getting this for 6 mana, that's kind of a ridiculous card, right? And I think you can build a deck to do that. It's pretty easy to play an Eldrazi-tron style deck and use a Key to the City, or even just tutor up like Oh, what's the thing that's played with Asmore, the Underworld cookbook? Like use Urza Saga to tutor up Underworld cookbook and just use that to discard the Emrakul, Madness hit for 6. And when this is a 6 mana 12/12 that's pretty much unkillable outside of Wraths or Edicts, that steals all your opponent's creatures, that's a ridiculous card, right? So I think it's like really strong, but you got to build around it. I don't think would you even jam it in like Tron or a deck like that? I'm not sure that you would. Maybe as a sideboard card for certain matchups, but I think if you can build a deck that Madness is this without playing a ton of bad cards, then I think this is pretty exciting. The protection from permanents that were cast this turn means it can't get Leyline Binding or anything like that, which is kind of the bane of some of the old Emrakuls. So how do you kill it once it hits the battlefield?
Odowaru can bounce it. So
yeah, I guess
that's a very commonly played card, but you don't need to kill it. You just kill them first. So the 6 colorless madness means this is like has to be a Tron deck, right? So Eldrazi Tron or a normal Tron. If I'm going through this effort, I feel it's just easier to cast a Little Karn or an Ulamog or something, because like you need the outlet, you need to do this, and you need your opponents to need their creatures. Right? Like if they're not a creature deck, this doesn't matter, right? If they're playing Living End or something, this doesn't matter, right? Like there's a lot of cases where stealing the creatures doesn't matter. And why don't you just play like the real Emrakul or an Ulamog or Karn? Like all these cards are too slow, by the way. Like Tron just plays Little Karn, gets a Ensnaring Bridge and calls it a day, right? Like that's all they need to do, right? So I don't know. And the fact that you can't, there's so many restrictions. You need to be able to have a sack outlet. Like, do you really want to be playing the Underworld cookbook in your Tron deck? Like, do you really want to be doing this? Right? That seems like a opportunity cost. So I don't like it. And then what if you drew like one of your forests or something, right? You can't pay the madness cost or something. So
yeah, 6 colorless is a big ask. It is the worst Emrakul, but that madness cost is still intriguing. What do you think about this card in Commander? I think I kind of hate this card in Commander because it just kind of like wrecks one person where you're like, hey, I'm taking all your creatures. Everyone else, let's kill him now. Like, that seems kind of annoying.
I think it still sucks.
Yeah. Okay.
So you take everyone's stuff and then someone just like rats. Like it doesn't matter. Like all your stuff was dying anyway, whether it dies on this side or that side. It needs to be indestructible or cannot be exiled or cannot be removed. Or like if it's removed from the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices all their lands.
All right, yeah.
But like a wrath takes care of this. Any commander, we have plenty of wraths, right? And again, you just dunk one person anyway. You don't even dunk the rest. And like you can take a few Emrakul hits. It's not like it has Annihilator where you're like, oh, I take this hit, I'm dead no matter what. Like you can take 12 damage.
I don't know about a few, but you can take one. You can take one. The second one's not gonna get
you can take 3. You still be
a
4 life.
12.
You still be a 4 life. Okay. I think this card's really good. Ajani. 2 mana 1/2. Ajani Nakatl Pariah. It's a legendary creature, cat warrior. When it ETBs, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token. When one or more other cats you control die, you may exile Ajani, return it to battlefield transformed. Surprise, it's a planeswalker in the back. It's a red-white planeswalker. 3 loyalty. +2, put a +1/+1 counter on each cat you control. 0, create a 2/1 white cat warrior creature token with create a token. When you do, if you control a red permanent other than Ajani, he deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. -4, each opponent chooses an artifact, creature, and enchantment of planeswalker. Among the non-land permanents they control, sacrifices the rest. So like Cataclysm without the lands.
Yeah. Which means, shouldn't it just Cataclysm? You got to play this as a creature. It's got to live. You got to flip it to the other side. Then you got to ultimate. WotC's so cautious with any land destruction. If there was ever a card that could actually Cataclysm, I think it would be this one.
That'd be a +- That'd be a plus than a Cataclysm. That'd be very strong.
Up it 1 or whatever. Make it -5 or something. But let me destroy a land, WotC, just for once. So you think this card's good, Richard? So, okay, let me ask you about this. So when I read the front side, it seems fine, right? You get a 2-drop that's making a 2/1 and a 1/2. Then you get the upside of the Planeswalker on the backside, which is nice. The 0 to make a token seems decent. My question is, You got to be a cat deck? Like, that's my concern. Like, its abilities kind of refer to cats, and cats are just not very close to being modern playable. So you think you can play this in, like, your Abzan deck or something, just as a value E2 drop?
I need a red card. So here's the problem. You got to play Mardu because you want that 0 to shoot things, right? Because if that 0 shoots things, you've got a Bowmasters or a Ren and 6 in your pocket that's popping out a 2/1 while it's doing it. That's insane. Are there playable cats? Is it, can we pull a Rakdos Vampires where like one of the best cards happens to be a cat already? Like,
I mean, there
it
are
would certainly
some
make the deck
okay
way better.
cats. Yeah, there's some okay cats. There's nothing that is super like top end modern playable.
Wait. Is it Leonin Arbiter is a cat?
Leonin Arbiter is a cat. That's true. So in like a Taxes deck, you could do that. A Johnny's Pride Mate.
Isn't this really good?
Okay.
You kill the thing to try to make your land drops, and then you flip a Johnny, and then you go. Can we go Boros Taxes?
Can we bring Brimaz back? Brimaz is a cat that makes cats. Brimaz was like modern playable at one point. That was a few years ago, but there was a time. Okay, maybe we can actually be a cat deck. Kahira is your companion. Okay.
I've actually got by Kahira so many times. Because
Out of
Kahira
control
pumps
decks, though?
elementals and they play Solitude or whatever, and you're like, oh my goodness, it has vigilance and it's pumped, like the stupid ability's relevant. I don't know. I feel it's a good enough card standalone, but I feel rather than having cats, you need red permanents.
Yeah.
So if you can have red permanents, and are there any hybrid cards that are playable? Like, so you're not ashy red, but you have like a kitchen finks or something giving you green. Like,
right. Ooh, Figure of Destiny. I don't know if that's the one, but
I don't know. We're going way back.
I guess we're getting a whole cycle of flipwalkers. So, or not necessarily a cycle, but one of the themes of the set is more flipwalkers like Magic Origins. So Ajani's the first one we've seen, but expect more planeswalkers as creatures that flip into planeswalkers. And I'm really hyped for it because they can be at modern power level, right? They can actually push these a little bit compared to the Magic Origins ones. Speaking of modern power level, Richard, one of the themes of Horizon sets is apparently free spell cycles, and we got another one, and I'm so scared of these. Is this one broken, though? So the card is Flare of Cultivation. It's a 3 mana, 1 and a green for a sorcery that lets you cultivate. You search your library for 2 basics, one go into play, the other goes into your hand, but you can cast it for free by sacking a non-token green creature, a creature of whatever the spell's color is. So it's a big restriction, right? Compared to past free spells, you have to have a non-token creature of the right color and sack it. Is that enough to make free spells fair? Or is this just going to be incredibly broken?
I mean, it seems like it sucks, but I mean, I'm sure if they make it, you can build a deck around it to make it happen. At least I like this. You got to actually do something with your deck to make it work. So people are like, well, you turn one a Boreal Grazer, you drop a land, you chuck the Boreal Grazer, you do this. But I'm not even sure Amulet Titan wants to be doing this. Like, yeah, you start the turn with second turn with 4 mana, but you really just cared about Amulet of Vigor or whatever, right? So I'm not sure that this actually did anything for you. It's gonna be interesting to see what the other colors do. But a non-token creature is hard. But like if this did something like the black one, so this one sucks for Yawgmoth decks because they don't want to ramp. But you could see if the black one was sack a non-token creature, like it could definitely do that. So we'll see what it is.
My expectation is the restriction is going to be the same on each of them, but I guess we'll see. My guess is they're all going to be sack a non-token creature of the color, but I don't think they've actually confirmed that.
Blue one will
but
be
I guess
useless
we'll have to see what the blue one. Phantasmal Bear maybe. Delver, sack your Delver, get a something.
Well, we'll see. Maybe they're bad and unexciting, then we'll complain that the power level's too low. And then if they're too good, we'll complain, why would you print more free spells? So I don't think Wizards going to win with this one.
Shout out for the Fetchland reprint. We really needed the allied ones to be reprinted. We got last Modern Horizons, the enemy ones, and it really helped with the price of those. But then the allied ones just shot up to $50 a piece. So getting more Polluted Deltas, Flooded Strands, that's a really big deal for Modern and for like Commander players too. So just all around really solid reprints there. I think this is the set I'm most excited about this year. I'm really hyped for Modern Horizons.
All right. So that is June. before your wallets have recovered, July, we have Assassin's Creed. So small boosters, only about 100 different cards. The set code is ACR, and the showcase treatment is, I don't know if you've played Assassin's Creed, but like that memory, I don't know what you call it. It's like this white looking fold etch things of polygons in the background.
They don't look
It's like
like Magic cards. It
it's
looks like
very
another card
Assassin's
game to
Creed.
me.
It's like the thing you see when you do the sci-fi thingy. You can tell I haven't played Assassin's Creed in a very long time. But I'll give you a card. It's Ezio Aditor de Friends. I'm sorry, Assassin's Creed fans. So 2 mana black, 3/2, legendary creature, human assassin, menace. Assassin spells you cast have free running. Double black. Okay. You may cast a spell for its free running cost if you dealt combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or commander. Whenever Ezio deals combat damage to a player, you may pay Wooburg. If that player has 10 or less life, when you do, that player loses the game.
That's kind of a cool card, I guess. So this is going to be modern legal. I don't know if I can imagine this card. I mean, could it see modern play? In modern, getting someone under 10 isn't hard, but you'd have to be some 5-color deck and attack with your 2 mana 3/2.
That's a lot of work.
It's a commander card, right? It's probably a commander card.
You need to have Wooburg. That's not easy. Having like 5 mana period in modern before you're dead is a tall ask, let alone hitting someone, getting them under 10.
What about the free running ability? I think that might be the most intriguing ability. So you can cast assassins for 2 mana if you dealt combat damage with an assassin, right? So that means you can be slamming, or a commander, but that means you can be playing like Massacre Girl, Unknown Killer for 2 mana, Trotta's for 2 mana, Literal Massacre Girl for 2 mana. And maybe that's the way to take advantage of this card, is some sort of like straight up assassin deck. No.
Do you know how hard it is to hit someone in modern when they don't want to be hit?
Menace, Richard.
So you got to cast your 2-drop, have it survive, hit them, and then you get to cheat.
A Massacre
Girl into play. Is there something really big?
You know what else is an assassin? Vein Ripper. It's a vampire assassin. We did it. We know it can work. We saw it at the Pro Tour.
I mean, I do like playing standard cards in modern, so I'll just take the Pioneer deck. Just play the Sorin. I think you have an easier time than trying to free run Vein Ripper.
I will say, I think my big takeaway is, so I don't know anything about Assassin's Creed, but apparently there's a lot of assassins in it. Like a lot of the cards that we've seen so far to refer to assassins. So if you want to build around these cards in Commander, I'd start looking at picking up my assassins now, because you know those cards are going to spike in a few months. So pick up your random assassins, get ahead of the game for building your commander deck with these cards. But I don't see much this modern playable.
Yeah, they look a little sus. I mean, I think we expected this. It'll be for commander. But how do you feel about real world historical figures in Magic the Gathering? So we have Leonardo da Vinci, Cleopatra, exiled pharaoh in the set. Da Vinci is just literally drawing Mona Lisa there. They're serialized. The Cleopatra serialized is in what looks to be Greek.
They said that the serialized cards of the real world characters are going to be in whatever language they spoke. So I have no idea what languages those are, but all the serialized cards are going to be that way. I kind of like it. So for me, we have precedent for this in Magic, right? Going back to like Legends era, the earliest days of the game, we used to have like real world characters and like clips of books and stuff on Magic cards. So I don't know, it doesn't really bother me. I'm kind of okay with it. Does it make sense for Assassin's Creed? Like, is Assassin's Creed about trying to like go back in time and assassinate Cleopatra or something? Is that what the game's about? Okay.
Yeah. But then they get very loose with history, but like it's supposed to be like a historical game. But I don't like it, because you have to, if you think about it for a second, like your immersion is shattered instantly. And I'm not just talking about like, why is Leonardo da Vinci talking with Jason the Mind Sculptor? I'm talking about like, why is he a 3/3? Da Vinci's bigger than like Thalia. a soldier
Yeah.
token, like anything, like
Okay.
what? Like all these characters should be 0/0s. Like a stiff breeze would kill them, right? Like, yeah, they could have like crazy ETBs or tap ability. Like, why is Cleopatra a 2/4? Like that
Yeah.
could stuff a welcoming vampire or something, or
I
a blood type harvester or whatever. Like what? What's going on?
I I would much rather have this than the like IRL current actors of Doctor Who though. Like 100% give me Cleopatra over here's a British actor eating a sandwich in his garage. So if I had to choose between the two, I think I'd choose these.
All
I don't know about
right.
the power level. I'm kind of like same with Fallout. I know we're going to talk about it on Commander, but I'm kind of feeling like these universes. I don't know. Maybe I'm spoiled because of Lord of the Rings and just how push that set was. But these do not so far seem like Lord of the Rings power level universes beyond. Like definitely not Fallout. And from what we've seen so far from Assassin's Creed, no One Rings or Bowmasters so far.
Yeah, I mean, the One Ring was like the first thing they spoiled, wasn't it? Like it was very early on that they spoiled the One Ring. I'm
Yeah.
trying to remember, so maybe these are the heavy hitters for the set, but maybe the heavy hitters are still coming. I don't know, but it's definitely looking like a Commander set versus a modern set.
Yeah.
And then finally, Seth, because we need to jump like 2 standards into the future, we got Bloomburrow. Bloomburrow is like animals or something. I don't even know what the theme is. It's like it looks kind of like Eldraine, but it's not Eldraine. It's animals, and I think is everything small? No, is everything small? No, everything is not small. That's another set.
Yeah.
August. It's coming in August. It's some kind of like talking animal. Oh, this was animals, but they can talk. This is the rotation set for standard. Set code is BLB. That's what
Wait, is this
Unix said. Is it not? It's
interesting?
in August.
So yeah, that's a little different than before, which I think is a good thing. I was actually wondering about it because normally the rotation set is like early September. This is early August. So yeah, I guess that's we're getting a rotation a little bit earlier, which I will not complain about. So that would make sense because the schedule's been very overloaded in the fall with like 2 sets almost back to back, like September and then November or whatever. So maybe they're doing this to spread it out a little bit more, but I'll take a earlier rotation.
All right. The showcase looks storybook. Wow, this looks so Eldraine to me. Like everything.
It does look very Eldraine.
It's like storybook thing. And then there's anime cards again. The borderless cards are anime, but they're like anime mice and
Animals.
bears. So but they're Japanese artists. Let's talk about a bear here. A 6 mana bear. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods, Elemental Bear. It's a mythic. Star power toughness. Vigilance reach. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of lands you control. When it ETBs, mill 4 cards, then return all lands from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped.
Sounds like that's a lot of ramp, right? Yeah, like, I don't know. You could maybe make a standard deck out of that. 6 mana is probably too much, but it has a powerful ETB trigger. Like, this is, by the time it comes down, right? It's going to come down. It's going to be at least a 6/6. And then you're also theoretically going to be getting a bunch of lands back from your graveyard if you're building around this. So this is probably going to be like a 10/10, a 15/15. Unfortunately, it doesn't have trample. I think that really hurts it because it means it's just going to get chump blocked all day by a random token, which there's so many of them in standard right now with Boros and wedding announcements and so forth. So maybe that's a concern, but I do think it's a powerful effect. Like, we don't have that many effects in Magic that are just return all the lands from your graveyard to the battlefield. And this does it on a relatively big body. So I think it could have some uses for constructed, but yeah, primarily a commander card.
Stone unplayable.
No.
No. Is Valakut in the format? Then maybe we're talking, right? But you had to ramp to it. It's 6 mana. That's like very hard to cast. And then once you've cast it, all it does is ramp you some more. Like, so you need like Field of the Dead, you need Valakut, you need like some lands that have ETB things, and then it's some kind of combo kill. But like you're ramping, which then ramps some more into like a big body that can be chumped all day. That's not enough, right? It has to combo kill when it does this.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably true.
Remember,
it seems
Tiny
good in
Bones
Commander.
Tiny Bones blocks this all day.
Tiny Bones does take down this bear all
and you're
day
milling
long.
yourself. You're just filling the graveyard for Tiny Bones.
I mean, good commander card, right? Would you play this in a generic self-mill deck like Madrotha or Sidisi or something? Or it seems like it could be worth it
Yes.
for value. Okay.
Yes. In Commander, it makes sense to hit 6 mana and then ramp even more. Like that is
You
a
never have too
very
much mana in Commander.
that's a very good play in Commander. So I think this will see play in Commander for decks that can self-mill. Maybe. What about just value? Is it Primeval Titan? If you just do two fetch lands, cast this and grab 2 lands. Is it Primeval Titan?
At home, maybe. Primeval Titan at home. It still might be fine. Plus it mills, right? So it's probably going to mill at least 1 land, maybe 2 lands. And so you're getting those as a bonus.
Harrowed or crop rotation or something.
Yeah.
I think it might actually be fine just straight up in a green deck without doing any shenanigans. But yeah.
The one other card we got was a mouse lord, a 3-mana 3/3 legendary mouse soldier. It's a Boros card. Pumps your mice +1/+1. When it ETBs, you create Craig Flame, a legendary equipment artifact token with vigilant. Equipped creature gets vigilance +1/+1, trample, and haste. How do you even evaluate this card? Like, how do you know if mice are going to be good in standard at this point or anywhere?
My immersion, Seth. I don't know. Is there a rat colony in the set? Like,
you know, it's going to be popular in Commander, though. You know, it's going to be popular in Commander. There's going to be mice decks running around in Commander. So I think okay. So I was on a panel with Mark Rosewater at MagicCon Chicago, and we were talking about the upcoming sets that were public. And this was one that he said was his vote for the big set of the year. He thought that people were going to absolutely love Bloomburrow. This was going to be the set of the year that everyone loves. So we'll see. But that's some high praise from someone who really knows Magic. So that got me more hyped for it, because this was kind of like medium on my list. But hearing Mark be like, this is my pick for one of the, the good ones, got me a little bit more hyped for this weird animal world.
It's better than cowboy hats on Oko. I'll give you that. And it's just like Eldrade at home, and Eldrade I really enjoy. So far I'm loving the art style, and there's anime in here. Can we go wrong with that? Like, can we go wrong with anime? So I think he's actually right here.
And we get like Ral Zarek as an otter. We get Jace as a fox. Like it's gonna. Oh, you didn't see that? We got the art. Yeah, we got the art for it. Yeah.
Wait, is that actually Jace though? That's like real Jace?
I believe so. Yeah, because they confirmed that the otter is Ral, so I think it's actually going to be real Jace, but as a fox. So it should be sweet.
I'm down for this. I'm down for this. Actually, oddly enough, I don't find this weird. We're running long, Seth, but we skipped one card, which is kind of very important.
Oh no!
And that's our World Champion card.
Oh yeah,
Duelist of the Mind. It's in Thunders of Outlaw Junction. That's Nathan Stewart's World Champion 28. If I can read Roman numerals. 2 mana, star power, 3 toughness, creature human advisor, flying vigilance. Duelist of the Mind's power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn this turn. Whenever you commit a crime, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. This ability triggers only once each turn.
So far, I think 100% of the World Championship cards have been very good. Fervent Champion saw a ton of play. Paulo, the Elite Spellbinder, saw a ton of play. I'm missing one, but the other one that we've seen so far also...
Fairy Vandal? No, Fairy
Mastermind? Yeah. Fairy Mastermind sees a lot of play. So I have high hopes that this card's going to be good. It seems like they really tried to make these playable. I think this card's got to be pretty reasonable, right? So its power is equal to the number of cards you've drawn. It's pretty easy to make this really huge, really quick. It can play a little bit of defense where, it has 3 toughness, so you get decent stats on a 2-drop. I don't know about outside of standard, but at least in standard, I think this card could be pretty powerful.
So it's
Modern?
a 1/3 at base. So during... Well, okay. It's kind of craft. So when you're attacking, it's a 1/3, right? And when you're blocking, it's a 0/3, right? But if you commit a crime, it becomes a 2/3, and then or a 1/3 on defense. That still kind of sucks. And then the committing the crime only lets you loot, and you can only do it once.
Oh, but
you gotta do a lot of work to make this big.
Oh, okay, what about this? You play this, then you brainstorm, and you draw 3 cards, and then all of a sudden this is a 4/3 attacking like on turn 3, or maybe you brainstorm again and it's like a 7 power creature. Like, there's ways to do it, right? We have rings
like
from
double
Timeless
brainstorm,
and Legacy.
and then afterwards it becomes a 1/3 again. So you hit them for 8.
Okay, so the last time we had a 2-drop blue flyer, C print like this, everyone slept on Ledger Shredder. Everyone thought that card was trash, and then it became like modern playable Ledger Shredder. I think this card's gonna be good. I don't want to miss on another Ledger Shredder. I think this one's actually going to be really good. I think we underrate these like cheap blue flyers. You get to leave up your interaction, you're chipping in for damage, you're casting your cantrips that you're doing anyway, and next thing you know, this thing's just smashing you for a bunch of damage and the game's ending. So I actually think, yeah, you got to build around it a bit, but I think this card's actually going to be strong.
But there's no brainstorm in a non-legacy vintage format. Like, you really need that cheap draw a ton, but you're not really drawing a ton. Like Faithless Looting, banned.
I mean, you get to but you get to loot every time.
Fable makes it a 3/3. Fable makes it a 3/3. Plus, you can just have Fable carry it through standard.
Plus, remember, you get to loot when you commit a crime, which means you fatal push your opponent's thing. You're gonna loot. You're gonna like trigger it to grow, and you get to fill your graveyard. You lightning bolt something. You lightning bolt your opponent's face. This grows. You get in more damage. I feel like that mode of it like makes it even better too.
I feel Bowmasters throws us all out of it. Like you don't want to be doing this because you're gonna die to a Bowmasters. Because I'm like, what if you put this in Murktide? Expressive Iteration doesn't even draw cards. Because I'm like, oh, you can fill your graveyard super quick for a Murktide with this, right? But you don't want to be drawing cards in a world of Orcish Bowmasters. So your free card draw is not really free, right? You're making Bowmaster triggers. So well, it's interesting. It's interesting. But you're right. We have historically underestimated these 2-drops. So hopefully Wizards knows what they're doing here. They didn't break the trend with Nathan Stewart. Like, sorry, you get the bad one. We had to put it in there.
You get the bad World Championship card. Anyway, let us know what you think about all these spoilers. You can see them all over on the website, over at mtgpreviews.com. Check out all the upcoming stuff. Next official spoiler season, like I said, a month from today for Outlaws at Thunder Junction. So we get a little break to do some Murders at Karlov Manor stuff, some Fallout stuff. I don't think we have time for fish mail today, Richard, but next week we might get to it. So where should people send those in?
All right. If you have any comments on any of these new sets, send them to @MTGGoldfish with the hashtag MTGFishmail, and we'll get to your questions on air.
And I believe that brings us to the end of episode 473 of the MTG Goldfish podcast. So, Richard, thanks for hanging out. Thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Card Conduit for supporting the show. And we'll be back next week to talk about whatever goes on in the world of Magic. So until then, have a lovely week, everyone. And this is a crew signing out.